man?
I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, good, man. Good. I really appreciate your time, and I want to give a shout out to Pure Steel Records because without Pure Steel, we would not be speaking this evening. So
Indeed.
yeah, man. All that said, so Paul, man, you go back. You were at the dawn of when heavy metal was, just really being born, man. And so I want to talk about some of your origins. I want to talk about, some of the things you had going on early in your career. But I really want to touch on this, whole thing that, maybe some people in the United States aren't necessarily familiar with, and that's the new wave of British heavy metal. Can you talk to me a
Yeah.
little bit about that? And I mean, you were really there at the start of it.
Well, in the mid 70s, there were the cool bands like um,
Salem.
Deep. Thank you. Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath. They were kind of the biggest bands in the early 70s into the mid 70s. And then you got this thing called punk rock come along and sort of blow away a lot of this old fart sort of stuff. And then after that, we're talking about 78, 79. 1980, a lot of guys who really enjoyed the sort of heavy rock music
Right.
got going again, playing sort of heavy rock music with a bit more of a punky attitude, like the early Iron Maiden sort of stuff.
Yeah, sure,
really
sure.
Quite, and it's sort of all these the younger bands sort of started to come out of that, playing music. Rather than sort of punky sort of stuff, but with some of the punky aggression. And it got people playing music again.
Right.
Salem was much more into still remaining true to the origins of the Sabbath, Rainbow, Black Sabbath, Thin Lizzy, those sort of influences. But the new wave of British heavy metal spawned bands like Iron Maiden, Def Leppard, Saxon, and we were part of that. And it seems to be sort of live and kicking again.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, and that was definitely the glory days of metal, without a doubt. And just looking back over things again, you being the lead guitarist of Salem, not too long into, you guys finally getting things going. You guys took a little bit of a break.
A little bit of a break, yeah. Well, we were formed out of a band called Ethel the Frog, which is a Monty Python link there to the name. And we played for about 3-4 years. We did some demos. We gigged wherever we could. We spoke to record companies, but the deal never came, and
right.
We kind of got tired of it, really, banging our head against the wall. And the new wave of British heavy metal was starting to. It was really sort of shortish but very exciting period.
Right.
And then in 2009, I got an email saying, "I heard you were in the band Salem. We'd like to release all your old 1980s demos."
Nice.
And a single that we did. So I thought this was a dream come true.
And I want to come back to that. Yeah, I love that. All right, so, it's a dream come true. They're coming back to you after all these years. What were some of the feelings you had going on?
Well, when we got back together again, well, it was incredible. We're from Hull in the northeast of England, and, the whole band is.
Right.
But by that time, by the late, I'm talking about 2009 here, I live now near Bristol. The singer lives south of London.
Okay.
So we'd all gone separate ways. I hadn't seen the guys since about 25 years. So
wow. So that much time had really gone by since you'd even seen your bandmates?
Yeah. We gone different ways, and some of them stayed together a bit. But Simon, the singer, Adrian, the bass player, and Paul, the drummer, they played together for a little while, but they went off to do different things. But since I got this opportunity, it wasn't just me. It was the Salem band, so I tracked everyone down.
Right.
And I met up with them all, and it was weird seeing these guys after so long. We'd got so much life experience since then, and some great things have happened, some less so, shall we say?
Right.
And everyone said, "Yeah, of course we want to do the album. That's brilliant."
That's
so
awesome.
let's release this through High Roller Records on vinyl
Okay.
and Pure Steel on CD.
All right.
So we had this album out. We thought, well, we'll better do a gig then. So we did a gig.
Right.
That was just it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But mine in the single, which is called "Reach to Eternity," has the line, "This is how it was meant to be." Yeah, this is how it was meant to be, and that was how it was meant to be. Playing a gig,
right,
after all these years, and while we were rehearsing for this gig, our bass player Adrian said, "Well, I've got a studio now. We could maybe record some new stuff."
Okay.
Of course, yeah, we started doing that. So we put a few songs together, put it on an EP, and people liked it. And we did another EP, and people liked that as well. So we got back in touch with Pure Steel, and they said, "Well, we like what you hear. Finish the album off, we'll release it." So that was what was released as Forgotten Dreams.
Okay, all right. That is a perfect segue, because I want to touch on Forgotten Dreams, because the music video that I've been playing there is Forgotten Dreams, the official music video, and then of course that's also the name of your album. Do you feel in any way that actually was, I don't know, did it really fit, I guess, the kind of emotions and the feelings that you guys were having at that time, given how much time had gone by since you started and you guys all get back together again? Do you feel that Forgotten Dreams kind of had a little bit more symbolism to you?
Well, entirely. There's a number of songs on the album that have this hanging on to the dreams. It's about, we'd forgotten that we were so passionate about this.
Right.
And in the video, there's a character, a female character, sort of spooky, eerie female character,
right,
who's meant to represent those dreams that we'd forgotten about.
Right.
And she appears up every now and again. We see her. And so that's what it's about. There's a few other songs also talking about this. There she goes. And so, yes, that's the whole point was about that. About being still alive to be playing together. They're still the same guys. They're still the same lineup as 1983.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we're still lucky to be alive, quite honestly.
Yeah, right? You guys rock and roll, man. I'm not going to get into all the, necessarily the, some of the darker skeletons in your closet, I mean, rock and rollers are rock and rollers, you know what I mean? But,
yeah, well,
so jumping ahead, obviously, you made a lot of music, and a lot of it didn't come out until when you guys had actually gotten back together again, like you said, Pure Steel Records reached out to you, the other record label reached out to you, and, you finally start putting some of these things on vinyl. Last spring, you come out with Dark Days. Talk to me a little bit about that, because I guess that's your newest work, yeah?
Well, it's the newest we've released.
Okay.
With the sort of euphoria, as it were, of the first studio album,
right,
Forgotten Dreams.
Uh-huh.
Working towards the next album, Pure Steel was straight away, yes, we'll release another album. So we worked towards that, and we felt with a really positive vibe of the first album, we were sort of allowed ourselves to be a bit more reflective and think about some of those experiences over the last few years that maybe weren't quite so good fun.
Right.
Because, well, yeah, we're not young men anymore. We've had all sorts of experiences.
So did you feel like
finance, work, and other sort of health issues over the years?
Right.
So Dark Days was a sort of we were able to explore some of these ideas, some of these themes, and we are living in difficult times. We are living in uncertain times. There's so much going on that they're dark days. So we wrote about that. We've written like the song "Lost My Mind," the song "Not Guilty," another song 9 Months, which is these are all songs where we're sort of a bit of a catharsis, really, like getting some of these negative thoughts out. But we do like to try to sort of come to positive, and then this happens, or then we're going to move on to this. So it's not all doom and gloom.
Sure, sure, yeah. No, you know what, Paul? I love how you're driving this conversation, man. You're making this easy for me. But
All right, brilliant.
so seriously, but so touching on the dark days and forgotten dreams and all those things that had gone on. The work that you'd been doing. Obviously, the industry as a whole, the music industry, has changed so much. Were there any thoughts in your mind, from the time when Salem first started to when you guys really got back together? Were there any reservations or maybe any kind of fear factor really at all for you, that maybe the time had passed you by, or did you kind of feel at all that you were getting in unfamiliar territory, or did you just kind of embrace that technological change that had taken place, and did you feel that there was any kind of a gap there really that you needed to come up to speed on?
Well, there's a lot of angles there. I'm quite fairly techie with what I do. So
there you go.
I was quite happy to embrace getting on the internet,
Okay.
emailing around, contacting people. That wasn't really a problem.
Okay.
And in terms of getting back together, first of all, it was very, very slow, sort of evolutionary thing. We started off with the album which had all our 1980s music. So
right.
That was there. That was done and dusted.
Right.
We had in our hands, and it was just a brilliant feeling to have a double album in your hands of your own music after all these years. And then to start playing gigs, did one gig, and then maybe a year and another gig.
Right.
And we recorded some songs, and then the year we did that. So in the first couple of years, it was really, really slow. But I was contacting people. Can we play this festival? Can we do this gig? And by end of 2012, we were playing in Europe. We were playing festivals in Italy and in Belgium.
Nice.
And we'd never played outside Europe, outside the UK before. So this was such a brilliant, brilliant experience. And it
Very
was just,
cool.
little by little. We haven't sort of dropped in the deep end. We want to play you a main stage at this massive festival. If you'd asked us that first year, we might have struggled a bit. Now we just grasp it. Say, yeah, of course.
Right, right. So do you feel like you've gone back in time at all, in a way, now that you guys are all back together? You're making new music. You've just had this new album come out this past spring. You guys are playing live again. You kind of feel like you've set back the clock?
No, I don't think so. I think
No.
that was just a totally different thing. And,
Okay.
It was really, really important because that's what brought us together in the first place. But
right.
now we're quite different people. We were in our late teens, early 20s when we were there before. Now we're in the 50s. We've all had family, and all the joys and heartache that brings. Sure.
But you guys are making it work. I mean, here you guys are all these years later, I mean, you're doing it, I mean,
yeah.
There have been bands that were together a lot shorter period of time, that broke up and that's it. They're gone, forgotten, but here you guys are, you're back, you're picking right back up, right where, not necessarily where you left off, but you're doing new things and you kind of found that synchronicity once again, yeah?
Absolutely. Well, no, it is great. I'm absolutely positive about it. It's really, really great. We get on really well after all these years. It's kind of not rock and roll to get on with your mates in the band, as it were.
Yeah, right.
We do get on very well.
That's cool.
We know the strengths of each other. He's good at this, he's good at that. Let him do that. And we are getting more festivals. When I started talking to people what the festivals we should do, and we're starting to tick those off now. We're getting to the really good ones. So it's brilliant. And to have your own music, that's the strongest thing about it, is that we feel we've got some really strong music.
Yeah, definitely, man.
There's 5 in the band, and 4 of us actually compose the music. So there's always going to be a dynamic. There's going to be a variety, because we all like rock music, we all like metal music.
Right.
But we all got different angles on it. I tend to be a little bit darker. I like sort of heavier stuff, something that's not progressive, but just a little bit edgier.
Okay.
Simon will like just sing a song,
Right.
and he's much more of a straightforward sort of, sort of Sammy Hagar, sort of the Who sort of music, more straightforward stuff.
Right.
Paul Macnamara, the drummer, he's into heavy and he likes a bit of prog. So all these different things are pulling different ways. And in hindsight, in the 1980s, that might have been a problem. That might have been a conflict.
Right.
But we now see that as a positive thing, a positive maturity. That dynamic is. Although sometimes you think, oh, I'm not sure about that one. When you get to listen to the finished article, you think, yeah, it's good.
Nice.
So
nice.
It's a different band than it was, even those same people. I think the difference is that we have more experience in life. We're probably better musicians, we're probably better songwriters, and we are talking about using the internet and modern technology. We're keen to embrace that.
Right.
Now we know if it wasn't, in fact, if we didn't have internet, if we didn't have the email and stuff, I wouldn't have got the opportunity to put the band together again. So we wouldn't be having this conversation,
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true.
But the industry is totally different. I was listening to you talking to one of the other guys earlier on.
Sure.
And it's a totally different industry. But we're just learning all the time. There's so much more that we have to learn yet. So bring it on.
Yeah, there you go. So all that being said, Paul, what's next, man? What do you guys have going on? What's next for Salem, man?
Well, we're already probably halfway through the next album.
Okay. All right, cool.
We've got most of the songs, I'd say, composed. Yeah, most of the songs composed, and we've got most of those in some stage of being recorded at an Adrian studio. So Simon's in Hull this coming weekend, so we'll do some more vocal. I reckon, probably by about late summer, we'll have the record ready. I know that Pure Steel are happy to do it again, so
right.
I don't see a reason. And we've got quite a few gigs lined up. We're rehearsing this weekend in Hull, so we'll all be back home in Hull. Rehearsing for a festival in Newcastle, northeast of England. But then we're playing in Spain and France and Belgium and more gigs in the UK around for the rest of the year. So we'd like to get to the States, yeah.
Sweet. Oh, yeah. Now, have you been over to the States?
No, not yet.
All right. Well, we got to make that happen. That happen, man. Well, Paul, thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it, and I'm really looking forward to featuring Salem on Rock Titan Television. And again, man, it's really been a pleasure. I really appreciate it.
Okay, cool. Rock on, man.
All right, man. You got it. Later.